finally made it to spinning. We're going to start with our left, we're going to work with our right, we're going to go hand to hand, and then we're going to put them both together with a continuous spin. So that's kind of where we're headed. Before we start with a single spin on the left hand, it looks like this. Before we start working on that, we're actually going to build it backwards. So we're going to learn the end first, then the middle, then the beginning. So the first thing we're going to do, and you can go ahead and do this along with me, we're going to take our left hand and we're going to place a palm up with the forearm parallel to the ground. From here, what we're going to be able to do is define how our arm can move throughout the course of the spin. So we can go 2 inches up, we can go 2 inches down, we can go 2 inches outside, and we can go 2 inches inside. Our elbow can go 2 inches out and come back in. Now in a previous video we talked about our balance points, balance point 1 and balance point 2. Go ahead and place your palm face up, forearm parallel. Take your rifle and go ahead and place it on balance point 1 so that it balances straight across your hand. Great. Take your right hand, grab the butt of the rifle, and what we're going to do is we're going to push the rifle slightly and reach up with that right hand and try to grab just below the band to stop the rifle straight up and down. Do this a couple of times. Okay? Now, we're going to give it a little bit more push, and I want you to increase the speed gradually. And as you increase the speed, our reaction time is going to have to get quicker and quicker, meaning I'm going to try to meet the barrel of the rifle sooner and sooner after pushing the rifle. So again, I'm going to add a little bit of speed. And notice, I'm trying to meet the rifle over here so that by the time it stops, it's straight up and down. Once we're comfortable with that, we should have a nice solid stop. The next piece of the puzzle. Now we're going to talk about what balance point 2 does. So go ahead and place your palm face up, forearm parallel. We're going to grab balance point 2 and we're going to make sure that our thumb is on top of the rifle. So in reality, as opposed to being under the balance point like we just were, we're going to cant our wrist with the palm facing forward and we're going to have the thumb on top of the rifle. Go ahead and re-grab the butt plate of the rifle. With me, go ahead and holding on with our left hand, release with the right hand, and you'll notice the rifle naturally swings to a 45-degree angle and then rocks back. That's the point of balance point 2. It gives the rifle momentum, and that's going to be very important in just a moment. What we're going to do is we're going to experiment with how much momentum we can give the rifle. So once again, go ahead and grab balance point 2 with the thumb on the top of the rifle, super important there. And we're going to give it a little push this time, and we're going to let it go parallel and come back. Now you remember the box that our left hand is stuck in. Make sure that as you're giving the rifle a greater and greater amount of force, that your hand and your arm stays within that box. So once again, we're going to push the rifle, and this time we're going to go a little bit above parallel. Now, at some point, say my elbow really wants to pull away. At some point, that momentum is going to be such that you can no longer keep your hand in the box without really kind of torquing your wrist, and that's a really key point. Before we go on and talk about spinning the rifle, which is really just letting go and doing some stuff with our hands, let's identify the hand motion that we're going to use. So without the rifle, you can hold the rifle in your right hand. I want you to imagine that we're holding an invisible rifle at balance point 2. Our palm is forward, our thumb is on top. I want you to imagine that we've just pushed it, so our wrist is turning inward, and at the last moment when that elbow really wants to pull away, what I want you to do is flip that palm back up like someone owes you money. So, we hold the rifle, we let it twist, palm up. Grab, let it twist, palm up. That's the fundamental motion of a spin. So when we go ahead and get back on the rifle, we're going to grasp the rifle, balance point 2, we're going to give it a push, and at the last moment, we're going to open the hand, and notice where the rifle naturally falls. It falls right back to balance point 1. Now, I know what's going to happen. There's only about 3 or 4 ways that this is going to turn out, other than we let it go to 45 degrees facing upward like this, we flip our hand over, it comes back into our hand at balance point 1. If that's you, that is awesome. But for most of us, when we first learn, we're going to do one of a couple of different things. If, when we go to push the rifle and release, we wind up like this, that means that we were kind of preoccupied with catching the rifle, and as soon as we let go, we're like, ah! And we try to catch it right away. We don't want to think about, and we don't want to interpret it as a catch of the rifle. What we want to think about is letting it rotate to 45 degrees, then flipping the hand back over underneath it, and the rifle is going to do the right thing. There's nothing you can do to aid it or assist it. If you do a push to 45 and flip the hand, its only natural consequence, because of where the bolt is and the weight of the rifle, is to continue in the course of its spin. So if you find yourself on the top of the rifle right here, try to hold and then flip that hand all the way over. Now, some of us, when we push, are going to wind up in a scenario like this. We're going to be holding at balance point 2, great. We're going to go all the way to 45, great. But we're going to wind up doing something like this. And the rifle's going to lose its momentum and kind of pull our shoulder away. And here you can see it's because I let the arm come out of the box and twist downward. Wherever the hand and the arm point, so there is the rifle going to go. So to counteract this, we have to focus really, really hard on keeping our hand in the box. Now, others of us, when we go to perform this spin, are going to wind up in kind of the opposite boat. When we push, we're going to find that it's really hard to do anything with the rifle, and that's because we're kind of too far choked up on the rifle in our body, probably as a result of the rifle being pretty heavy. So really, really be mindful, especially if you're not used to the weight. We have to be very mindful of keeping that forearm at that parallel angle to start. If we start here, we have nowhere for that rifle to go, and that often results in rolling the rifle over the hand, which feels like you're completing the spin, but is actually a completely different technique. So now that we're comfortable pushing to 45, push to 45, push to 45, flip the hand, and we're back on that center balance point. And again, I can't stress this enough. This is not about throwing and catching a rifle. If you set the rifle in motion, following the rule of the box, and following it up to a 45 degree, and then flip the hand, the rifle will spin itself. You are, in fact, not spinning the rifle is spinning the rifle. You are putting it in motion and waiting for it to be done. You're dropping it off, and you're picking it up. So, if we do those things, we are now back here. From here, we already learned how to stop the rifle in our first step. So as soon as the rifle comes back around, and it's in the palm of our hand, we can begin to reach up and start to stop the rifle. Now, watch the motion of my arm as I put these two things together, because this is going to help us really stop the rifle and avoid having a little bit of wishy-washiness or kickback on the catch. So we're here, we push. Notice how my hand, as soon as I can't push the rifle any further, my hand comes back up to wait in the strike zone between my neck and my shoulder. It's kind of like a Nike swoosh. I'm letting it go, and I'm going right up to that top corner. Some of us are going to be tempted to do this. If we bring our hand out and back in, we're going to lose the reaction time necessary to stop the rifle straight up and down in front of our face. So as we're learning and as we're working on this, keep trying to force that hand to go to the top, so that all you need to do is squeeze and the rifle will wind up straight up and down. That's the stopping motion that we're going to use. So again, to recap, we have a push, we have a hand flip, and we have our stop reaching up into the corner to end nice and straight up and down by the end. To reform from this back to port, let's say we've done that, all we're going to do is take our right hand back to port, and our left hand is going to re-slap the rifle just below the sling at balance point number 2. So now we have the middle and the end. So what about the beginning? The beginning is going to start from port arms. And we're going to start very basic, and we're going to kind of break the components of our prepping motion into 2 or 3 distinct parts. The first part is the twist downward, and we're going to take our barrel, keeping our hand at balance point 2, and letting our hand rotate to thumb on top. We're going to take that rifle and point it down towards our left big toe. We can look down. Is it by my big toe? Okay, great. Then, the height of the rifle is going to be determined by the angle of the butt plate being directly below the eyes. I should be able to peer over the top of the rifle. It shouldn't be covering my face. That's going to give me too much of an arm bend. It shouldn't be by my chin. That's going to lock out my arm. If I have to unlock my arm first, it's going to have a hiccup in the movement. We want a slight bend, which is going to be butt plate directly below the eyes. As soon as we point the rifle down, having let our hand move from the front to the inside, as soon as we point, we're going to allow our right hand to slide up until the pinky is flush with the butt plate and our elbow is parallel. We point, slide. And when we put those 2 motions together, it's going to feel very awkward at first. But as we get used to it, you will see that as soon as we hit that bottom, the hand has a little bit of a room to kind of slide up and hop to the end of the rifle. So in regular speed, it looks like this. Notice the hand is slid slightly up. The rifle is pointing down. From this position, we can push and raise the arm, to complete the spin. You'll find you need much less force pushing from that torqued position downward than you did when you were pushing it from flat. And that's by design. Now it should be a much more efficient and much more fluid motion. So again, play with the amount of speed that you use and see what effect, that's a lot of speed, see what effect it has on the outcome of the spin. So the whole spin together looks like. And if you want to get really fancy on the prep, we can add a clap down. What I mean by that is we can take our hand, left hand, drop it down by our thigh, take the rifle, slam it into the hand, finish the prepping motion, and then allow our hand to slide up. So to practice that, we bring our hand down, we put the rifle into it, we slide the hand up. And when we make that one fluid motion, we simply let go moments before we catch the rifle to give ourselves a nice little pop as we prep the rifle into position.